Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, we'll be reviewing the new UD1-J Sim Racing Dash from SimCore. Attention to detail is obvious on this unit, and it's easy to see that SimCore knows what they are doing here. I was able to test this unit for several weeks. If you're in the market for a feature-rich, top-flight dash solution, this could be what you're looking for. Time to put it through the SRG's review process and see how it does. So, let's get to it. Let's take a closer look at the SimCore UD1-J display. Now, this is a very professionally finished product right out of the box. It's just one of those things that everywhere you look, it's really nice, done quite well. And at the price point this comes in at, this is what I expect, nothing less. And the aluminum housing that's around this display is just such a nicely done piece of machining here in the CNC, all beveled everywhere on the corners, everywhere you look. We have bevels on the display down here. You can see it shining there all the way around. Just these little accents like this, to me, because I see so much when I do all these reviews, that you can tell right out of the box what's good and where they cut corners at. And this was just well thought out. Bevels all around the edge here. We have a nice overhang here to keep the glare off the screen, even though it is a matte screen to begin with, which is a good thing. It's not glossy. And even the holes around here, you can see they have bevels all the way around. Just no sharp edges anywhere. Just very professionally done everywhere you look. Even the holes here for access for the wires, or some of this might be holding some board on, but we'll find out. But yeah, I have a screw down here and I have a connector down here is why I said that. It could be some options for mounting where you want to plug your unit in, which is, by the way, optional. And yeah, just nicely presented everywhere. The carbon fiber on the back here, just perfect. No defects in the weave. Everything is perfectly straight like it should be. And this bracket you see on here, we have some other brackets you can see in the background there. This bracket is made to mount to the podium series of the Fanatec wheels. And yeah, you have little slots here that can go up and down. So this will mount right to the front of that podium wheelbase. And just, yeah, I mean, the screws, flat screws, we have the flat heads in there that go into a recessed or countersunk type of washer there for a nice look. And we've got some spacers there on the back. Yeah, everywhere you look on this, it's just so nicely done. And they have a nice connector here that is kind of like a headphone connector, and I'll show you that in a second, plugging the cable in when we get to that point. But this display itself is a 4.3-inch display. It's from Ultimate Game Tech. You know, a lot of manufacturers are starting to use this display because it has a micro processor on the board for this display. It has a lot of functions, a lot of different dashes and things custom dashes you can make. We'll take a closer look at that in the software part of running the display itself. But yeah, it's a very good display. It's all done in hardware, unlike some displays that are done in software on the computer as far as their dashes and things. And in other words, it's a video signal coming into a display instead of the display having everything on it itself. And everything just works quite well on this. Anyway, but we'll, like I said, get a closer look at that when we get to that point of the review. Yeah, everything is just really so well done here. And just as soon as you pull it out of the box, you know, something at this price point, this is what you expect. And this is what you're getting. Just very nicely done. And yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about here on the display itself, holding it in hand. And again, it's one of those things that's hard to convey on video because you're not here with me. And yeah, it's just one of those things that as soon as you have it in the 3D environment of reality and yeah, holding it in your hand, you can tell it's just such a nice product here. And this carbon fiber brackets, by the way, are 4 millimeters thick, or rather 3 millimeters, not 4 millimeters. The 4 millimeter thick is the piece here. This little ledge here, I was measuring both of those. And this is a 4 millimeter piece of aluminum they've left after they CNC this whole piece of aluminum out of a solid billet. So yeah, very nicely done there. Just really nice to hold this in your hand. And let's see, what else can we do here? The dimensions of this display, it's not real big, but it's not real small. It's 142 millimeters wide, the way I'm measuring it here. And over here, it's about 93 millimeters tall. The thickness on the bottom comes in at 31 millimeters. And the widest part being, again, this little sunshade lid we have here is 41 millimeters. So that'll give you some ideas on the dimensions. Of course, that's going to increase as we go up because of the visor. Right. The cable that comes with it, very nicely done. Again, you know, details is everything, guys, especially when you get into the finer pieces of equipment that was available in sim racing hardware, and the manufacturer needs to do things like this to justify the price they charge for these things. And I think this does. This is actually a spring-loaded collar on here. It reminds me of some expensive headphone cables that I've had on headphones that I've bought over the years. That, yes, it's a little spring-loaded piece that snaps back up. And you can see it has a multi-ridged or keyed piece on the inside here. And of course, it has 4 conductors for USB. And yeah, just when you hold it in hand, it's very nicely done. Good shrink wrap there. Everything's just done quite well. Of course, it's the normal USB-A piece here. And we even have a nice ferrite core manufactured onto the cable, not just one of the snap-on units. I always like to see a ferrite core. Now, how this connects is, let me untangle my wrap here. Obviously, there's a way for this to go on with all those, that keyway that we saw in there, right? All those grooves that have to, well, all those slots that have to go into the grooves. And of course, we have the grooves right there. And we also have some ball bearings. How well this is going to show up on the connector here. I think you can see one of them right over here. There it is. And on the other side, we have the same thing. Now, the reason I'm pointing that out is that there is a way to put this cable on. There's no, obviously, marks here, and there's no mark around the outside of this. So there are some slots, though. You see these little flat pieces on that connector? So we got one on both sides. They actually coincide with the ball bearings. So what you want to do is get the slot aligned with where those ball bearings are and kind of just approach it like that, and then it'll slide right on. You push it, or you can just take the spring piece off yourself and push it on if you want, but you should just be able to push it home like that. So now it's connected. So you just push it on and you're done. Then, of course, you take the spring loose to disconnect it when you need to, like that. Very easy. So anyway, very nicely done. As you can see, this whole thing is presented very well. We also have a couple other brackets that SimCore sent me so I could show you different mounts. This mount here is for a midge motor or the Simu Cube. It should fit both of those. And over here we have one made for a Cole Morgan, so I can use it on my Leo Bodner wheel because I'm running a 54G Cole Morgan motor there, and that is the hole spacing for that. Now notice there's no slots here, so there is no adjustment up and down here. There is a little bit of adjustment over here though, so I can actually raise it or lower it within the bracket. If you look at this bracket back here, the adjustments are here, but not here. These are just holes. So when I first looked at that, I said, wow, no adjustment, so I can't fine tune it. But then, yeah, we got the slots here, so it'll work just fine. And yeah, the same way here, we've got some slots on this one instead of just holes. And you can see it's just the holes for mounting to the back of the display itself. So again, very nicely done. These carbon fiber pieces, I couldn't find any problems with anything. Everything is just nicely done. All the holes are beveled. All the slots are beveled. I mean, it's just very finely finished. A lot of attention to detail here on this product. And you do, depending on the bracket you get, I'm assuming, because I got a set of screws here. This set of screws is a flathead with a countersunk washer on it. And these, I believe, are M6s. Yeah, they look like M6s. You see that little countersunk washer there. It will accommodate that flathead bolt. And these are for the Fanatec front end, because the Fanatec has some tapped holes on their podium bases on the front. And we'll just put this in like that. And I'll show you different shots of mounted to like a midge or when I'm mounted to a Bodner or to the Fanatec, so you guys can see how all that looks. Also got a couple of longer bolts here, and I'm assuming this is for maybe the Bodner, but I'm going to run my own bolts anyway because these are M8 holes. So this will fit the bolts that I'm running already, so it doesn't really matter, but there they are. You also get some SimCore stickers. These are pretty cool stickers. They are the kind that are clear with just the lettering, so when you put it on something, you'll still see the clear part of the sticker, but mostly the black will stand out. And yeah, I guess that's about it. Not much to show you here in the closer look. Where we're really going to get into more details is mounting it and running it, and also getting it over and doing some testing on it. And I'm going to go ahead and plug this back in so we can take a quick look at what it looks like. Again, I'm getting my little slots lined up there, so I'm with my ball bearings. It just pops right on. And let's see what this thing looks like when we connect it to the laptop over here. Let's get a good look at it here. There we go. They're starting up. And SimCore. Very bright lights. I mean, you see how clear that is? And I've got studio lights on this thing. So it's a very nice display, very high quality. And some other wheels that I've done reviews on that had these displays in them, these UGT displays. It's just very impressive with how clear and bright and sharp they are. But anyway, yeah, so there's a look at it all lit up, and we'll get on to the next segment. So we'll take a look at the bracket system and how we mount this display from SimCore to whatever you're going to mount it to. Now this, again, if you saw the closer look, this is a Fanatec bracket here that came attached to it. And I actually attached this to a direct drive Podium Fanatec. It was the DD1. I'm showing you some video of that. And we had plenty of room in the slots, the adjustment slots for height, to get it dialed in where there's no interference on the bolts on the back, and everything fit like it should. Yeah, good to go. Now, these, what I'm talking about as far as the bolts are these screws back here, you can see they're flatheads. They have this washer that's a countersunk washer. So it accepts the bevel on that counter, or rather on that screw down into it, and it sits nice and pretty and flat. But they do stick out a bit, right? So this can interfere with the wheelbase mount itself. Now I went over and mounted this to my Cole Morgan that's on my Bodner system that I use. And I did have to use some spacers, and I'm showing you the spacers here. Now that's because it wouldn't sit flush against the top part of the wheel mount because of the screws were causing what would be hitting it, in other words. And you don't want that to happen. You want this bracket to be nice and flat against that wheelbase plate, right, the front of it. So again, just adding some spacers took care of it, and that's just some washers. So it's not a big deal, and it's something I'm completely used to as far as mounting things and get them to line up right on some brackets. It'd be nice if SimCore would include maybe some washers, some black ones, so that we could put them on there for those spacing needs depending on where you're going to be mounting your wheel. Then I went over and mounted it to a midge motor, and the same thing. You can see here the washers down in the back, and I'll talk about that more once I'm actually doing the driving segment or the final mounting segment and show you how that ended up. But yeah, still need spacers on that one too to clear the screws. And again, it's just one of those things that you have to deal with on some of these things that you get as far as products. And it'd be nice if there was some washers included to handle that. But it's probably something that the manufacturer didn't foresee, really. But anyway, that's why we send it to the SRG to go through the review process so we can see these kind of things. Now, taking one of these off, now chances are you won't have to do this because you already have the mounting bracket that you need for whatever your situation is. But I am going to take it off. These are 2.5 mil, the flatheads that we see here. I'm using a 2.5 wrench here. This is one of my Huddy ones. And the bands identify the size. 2 wide ones means 2 millimeters, and then the skinny one means a half. So there you go, in case you were wondering. So I'm just going to spin these out real quick like. Bear with me here. They don't go too deep as far as the depth of the screw as far as it sits down in there, so it comes off pretty easily. Should be able to pull all these off without dropping them. There we go. And there they are. Now there are some spacers, as you can see right here. And these spacers are 5 millimeters thick. They seem to be made of some kind of a plastic, hard plastic, very stiff. And you could actually mount this without these spacers, I would imagine, the only concern being the length of our screws here. And we'll take a look at those too. Big spacer back up there. And this is a flathead M3, I believe, screw. And this is that beveled washer, or countersunk washer, that allows us to make it look nice and pretty and flat when it goes in there. Nice little touch. I like the little touches, these little details that are on things like this SimCore display. Now, if I want to take another one, put it on there, I change my mount, whatever the case may be, I would line up my spacers, kind of look down on them, get them lined up. And I would try to, I don't know if this will work, but let's see. This is the Bodner mount, so I'll use that one. Actually, I'll use this one. This is for the midge motors and the SimuCube 2 motors. So we'll go ahead and preload this because it came out that way. And there's some bevels here. I'm going to see if you guys can see that. There's countersunk holes on this bracket, which means you could run this without the washer, but I kind of like the way the washer looks, so I'm just going to set it in there. And that just, like I said, it kind of dresses it up a bit. I'm going to preload this, hoping if I can get this all lined up and dropped in at once. And again, I'm just going to check my spacers and make sure they look like they are where they're supposed to be. And I'm going to look straight down here where the screws are and try to just go to the spacers is the first part. Remember, these spacers are kind of, oh, look at that. They're kind of loose. Look at that. They all dropped in. Can you believe it? Unbelievable. Usually there's one at least that doesn't want to work, or this you hit it wrong and the spacer underneath shoots out. You're chasing this spacer across the floor. You know, I got pretty lucky on this one though. That's the fun of doing this stuff. Assembling and disassembling. All right, so we're just snugging these up. You don't have to put a lot of torque on them. Check this one more time here because I wasn't sure how far. There we go. And there we have it. So if you ever have the need to change it, then you can. Very simple thing to do. And yeah, so that's about it as far as how the mount system works on the SimCore display. So let's take a look inside of the SimCore display unit. On the back of this housing, there's a piece of carbon fiber, and I'm assuming that's how we access it. And I'm going to take these bolts off of the bracket because we have to get access to it, so I'll do that real quick. Now these are, again, 2.5, if you haven't been watching so far, 2.5 millimeter hex head wrench size on these flathead screws. I'll be using my little hoodie here, if I can hold on to it. And we'll go ahead and get these screws to come out. They don't go in very deep, it seems, so this will be pretty quick. And this hoodie fits very tightly into these screw heads, so it kind of sticks, which is what I like about the hoodies, really. They're very good wrenches. If you guys have an RC hobby, you may already know about those. Right, so let's pull this off, get it out of the way. And again, these are, if you haven't been watching yet, a 3 millimeter screw that has a nice flathead on it. And again, the 2.5 size for the hex wrench. And then we have these countersunk washers so that our screw fits in there nice and flat and looks very classy. And again, attention to detail here. That's what it's all about when it comes to the SimCore stuff so far that I've seen. Now, we've got some spacers on here. Be careful of that because the spacers will fly away on you if you're not careful. And I'm going to, whoop, okay, well, it just comes right out then. See, that's why you grab it with two hands. I'm just looking in here just to take a peek to make sure there's nothing going on. There isn't. So I can just take this straight away off. A nice carbon fiber unit here. Both sides look good. No problems in the weave. This is probably, I'm thinking 2 mil or so. Let's see what we got here. Let's see, that is a 2 mil piece of carbon. And it looks like it's sitting in, yeah, this display housing. You can see it has a nice lip all the way around the circumference of this housing that's been machined out of this one piece of aluminum here. And this fits in very nice and neat. Very well done as far as the tolerances here. Again, a lot of precision work here. SimCore is just, you know, their stuff is really good looking. All right, so we'll get that out of the way and take a look at what's going on here. We have some standoffs here that also support that carbon fiber plate as we screw that in. I guess those are, they feel like they're probably aluminum, it looks like to me, because I can see the shiny threaded bits down in there. I don't know how well that's showing up on the camera. But yeah, very nicely done here. And again, a very neat, clean application. Not much to see here on our look inside. It has the ultimate Game Tech display, and it has a lot of, you can see all the pads on this, different things you can do with this display. This is I'm really impressed by this display as far as the build quality and how they keep updating the software and just how good overall the display looks and functions in general. Now, it's not perfect, and nothing is really. Now we have some soldered wires here, soldered to the pads they need to be for the USB connection. And you can see it's got some insulation on there, some hot glue kind of insulation stuff. Very nicely done, and you can see it comes out to this connector. The connector that I was talking about before, it looks so good. Now you can see this is threaded right here. So it's threaded into this hole in this aluminum housing. And then we have this piece hanging out the back, right? So what that means is, if you notice, there's several screws or bolts on the bottom. There are 2 on each side of this housing. And of course they're threaded. So if I wanted for some reason to, as long as this is long enough, obviously, and it will be long enough to reach anything around here. It looks like it's long enough to reach these 2 sides here. So if I needed to change this from coming out the bottom, I would simply unscrew this. Now there's probably a tool. You have to be careful to do that, imagine. Might even be some Loctite on there. But anyway, in the manufacturing process, you can decide when you order your display where you want this to come out. You can come out on the side here on 2 positions, one higher than the other, or the other side same way. And over here I can get a little bit closer, or I can get further away over here depending on where I want my cable to exit. Again, as you guys can see here, this is a pretty piece of CNC machining, just top quality, top flight kit here. Yeah, just well done. So yeah, that's a pretty short look inside segment because there's not much else to see here. Just yeah, good job. Now let's take a look at the feature set on this display. Now of course this is the Ultimate Game Tech display, and we're going to want to go to their website to get the app that runs it. And we'll go down to their download UGT manager, and it's called the UGT manager, obviously. And the latest one looks like 9/15/20 at the date of this video, and that's the one that I have. Now, you also see that we have a UGT manager link here for the manual and some layout downloads. Now, the manual is an online manual. They don't have a downloadable PDF. I couldn't find one anywhere. And if you click on that, in fact, I'll say open in a new tab, you'll get an interactive type of manual here. So you can go to main screen, things that'll tell you what you can do on the main screen, list of sims, things like that. You can go down here to mappings. It'll tell you how to map buttons, settings for like LEDs, things like that. So all that's in that page for the manual. Now, let's get rid of the manual and go back to the layouts for the downloads. Now these layouts, or you can call them dashes if you want. I'll click on those. And these are all of the available layouts for your display. And there's a lot of them on here. And you can see that, yeah, it's like I said, there's plenty here. I think most people can find what they want. If not, we can edit them, and I'll go over that briefly too. I'm not going to do a real deep dive in this software because it would take an hour or maybe even 2 to really get all the details on it. But I'm going to show you how basically get set up and get running. Now, if I wanted to save one of these dashes, let's say, I would right click on it, and well, I wouldn't right click on it. Sorry, you get to click on it. See what happened when I clicked on it? Let's cancel that and do it again. Let's say I wanted this display. I would click on it, and it would bring up where the last download was saved when I was on this site. And you can see I have a folder already that is UGT display and layouts. And I've already got this layout, I do believe, also. So anyway, this is how you do it. So create a folder, download the layouts that you think you want. I'm going to cancel that. And then you can upload them to the wheel when you're ready. All right, and that takes a little while, so be prepared. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it does work. All right, so we've downloaded the app. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. I'm going to exit this. And I've already got a shortcut over here for the Ultimate Game Tech Manager, and I'll double click that. And it comes up like this. And it's going to detect the wheel. You can see it synchronizing up here. It's reading files. And then it's reading files from the device, getting everything ready to go. And we should be good to go now. So this is a small interface. Doesn't take up a lot of room on the screen, and you can't make it any bigger. So it is what it is. I'm going to put this up in the corner. I'm trying to save some real estate here for the things that I'm going to go through. Now, first thing you can do here is, well, test your display. And there's going to be a default layout in here called Layout 1. Now, when I go in here, I can actually click this, and there's a bunch of layouts. Look at all these layouts down here, 28. I actually clicked on that. So I've got a lot of layouts that are already on this wheel, and we'll see more of that in a minute. But the default layout like that is a good place to just test it out real quick, your display. And I'll click on that and say Start Test Data. And this will run a test loop showing you what that particular display that I've selected is capable of giving you. So I'll go ahead and click that, and you can see it starting there. So this is a pretty basic one, but it shows the LEDs working. It shows, you know, we got RPMs, we got speed, we got some, I believe that's, what is that? Some kind of a lapse delta. Maybe that's for fuel. But anyway, yeah, fuel, because it's got an F in front of it. So anyway, we'll go over a little bit more of that in a minute. So this is a good way to test it. Now, if I want to test another layout that I already had in here, as you can see, I had a long list of layouts. Let's say I just wanted to see layout 19. I click on that, and you can see it changes to layout 19. And then I can see what's going on with that. So this is how I can do a quick test. All right. The next thing you're going to want to do is, and before you start editing layouts and doing all that stuff, you're probably going to want to put some layouts on the wheel, or the display rather, because this display is not on a wheel. And to do that, we'll go up here to layouts. Now there's a couple of things we can use here for monitoring this. And first I'm just going to go out to the, let's go to the global settings. That's what we want. I'm going to click on that, and there we see global settings, right? So this is where our layouts are. And there's some other tabs up here, RPM, LED brightness, where we can make some adjustments. So if the car is not exactly matching what we want to see on the RPMs that we're driving, we can come in here and adjust these sliders. And we can also do some color changes and some other, there's a lot of things we can do in here. But yeah, just to get the RPMs to be like we want them to be. Also, we have dynamic colors available here. And that just simply means that as the numbers are changing, or let's say the temperature's going up in your car, it will go from like blue for cold, green would be whatever range you think is optimal. And if it's getting too hot, the numbers will turn red. Pretty cool. It has dynamic things like that. And special layouts is over here where we can do some special stuff for the different layouts. On the bottom here is where we can load settings, or we can save settings. And we can save them to general. We can save them to sims. I don't have any sims on here, so you're not going to see any here. In fact, if I go down to the sim here in this drop down, okay, I don't have any on this laptop, but yeah, it gives me a list of them that I can save whatever I'm doing to that. And of course, this bottom part stays with everything that I'm doing here, dynamic colors, RPMs, or layouts. So all that's there. I can save it per car, in the sim, or just in the sim in general. So a lot of things you can do here. Now, I want to get your attention on the layouts. The top piece here is the layouts I have loaded in the display currently, all right? Now, the bottom is all those layouts that I downloaded. And you can see I'm starting at 1. And these are all the layouts I can choose from to put onto the display. I just don't have a lot right now. And you can see I have, what is it, total of 29. So to use this, if I wanted to use one of these that I didn't have already up here, let's see, what do I have up here already? Let's take a scroll over. I don't have this one, it looks like, 11. Yeah, so I'm going to take 11, and I'm going to click on it, hold it, and just drag it up here and drop it. All right, so then I'll scroll over, and there it is, 11. Now, if I don't want it anymore, then I can just take it back off by dragging it over to the here. Drop it. Right, so I'm back to what I had before. Simple as that. Very simple. And again, I can save everything per sim in this list if, obviously, I have the sims. And same thing down here for the save setting too. All right, so anyway, that's the basic layouts that we've downloaded, and we can add them as we want. Now let's say I have the layouts on there, and you can actually go in here while you're looking at these layouts and click on them and see what they're doing. If I click on one of these, it should change it on my display, and there it is. So I can go through what I have, see what they're looking like on my display. Now I'd rather do it on my display, but there is an emulator that you can also do it on, apparently. And I am going to open the emulator. Let's see. There it is, show emulator, and there it is. So this is also showing what's on my display. And I'm going to drag this down so you guys can see it. So again, if I change something, it changes it on the emulator and on the display too. But you really don't need the emulator if you've already got your display going, I think, if you can see it. But if you can't see it, it's something nice as a function. Now, the only thing about this emulator, you can't really get rid of it. There's no X to click on. Like if I want to get rid of this general settings, I can just click on the X and it goes away, right? Of course, the data stopped and now I'm SimCore, but my emulator is still hanging out here. So I'm gonna move it over here. But when I open the layout generator, that will go away, I think. Let's go layout generator. There it goes. Went away because it moved over to our layout generator. Now I'm going to drag that over my display because I can see it now up here in front of me and I'm trying to do things. I'm going to go through this just lightly because there's so much you can do here. And all these pieces in here have been dragged and dropped onto the screen. If I click on one of these and hold it with my left mouse button, I can move it around to wherever I want. Let's say I want to put something else up here. I'll sneak it up there like that. And if I can't get it exactly where I want with my mouse, I can actually go up here and actually move it around with these arrows very, as it says, precision move. Very slowly and get very specific about where I put it. Now that I made some space down there, let's say I want to add something else. And let's say I want to add, let's go to the fuel. These are categories down here. This is the fonts that you can put in. Right now I'm on Arial, and you can see all the different fonts we have and the size of the font, and also label characteristics, colors, and we'll deal with the color in a minute. So let's go to, what else we want to look at here? Let's look at, there's so much to choose from. It's hard to really sometimes make up your mind. Let's see, do I have brake temperature up here? No. Let's see how big that is. So what I'm going to do is just, again, left click and drag brake temperature over there. See how much room it takes up. We'll go over there. Oh, here we go. It's a sub menu apparently. So brake left, right, brake left, right. So I can't get all of them. I just have to, okay, so each one. All right. So that's the brake temperature. That was front left. Let's go rear left. See what that does. So there's rear left. Oops, grabbing the wrong guy. So you can put those on there if you want to. Now, if you notice, they're green. Now, it's easy to change the colors on this stuff. Well, it just went to blue. Ah, this is dynamic. So what's happening is, just like I was talking before, if you were following along and not missing this yet, you can see that this temperature is green now, and then it will go and click off that one. It's blue, and then this one's getting blue. So the particular temperature range on the brakes will change the color of these digits as they're going. So if my brakes are getting hot, they'll actually go to red. So right now they're green, and then when they get cold, like you see down here, they're blue. Let's say I made a mistake. I didn't want to keep these on here. I can actually just drag them over here and get rid of them. Or I can just click on them, highlight it, and click over here, and it goes away too. So that's how you do it. Now let's say I want to change, let's go get my lapse delta back down here. Right now the color is yellow. I want to make that a nice red. How about that? So I'll go down here on the red, and I highlight them first. I'll go down here to colors red, click on that, and you can see the whole thing changed to red. So I'll click in the open space, and there it is, red. So that's an easy way to change the colors. Now again, there's so much you can do here. You can take one of these layouts. Let's say I want to take a layout. Let me get a good one here. No, that's not a good one. It's too busy already. I want to get 16. Well, boy, they're all full up. I need something that, layout 2. Let's try that. Nope. Well, there's a lot of stuff in these layouts. Well, I can get rid of one if I want to and put something else up there. But here's the point of this, what I'm doing is showing you that, you see my brake temps up here. See how they're red now? So my front brakes are really heating up because I'm probably braking hard on them, but the rear, left, and right are doing a pretty good job, and they're still in the green. Now, I can drag something out of here if I don't like it and put something in its place, is the whole point of this. So I can clone this layout. I'm going to go back to layout 1 because it's got more room in it. Okay, now I'm going to clone that layout. Click on that, and it's cloned. So this is the clone now. So now I can change things. I can drag stuff, get rid of it. I can get rid of my speed that way. Let's see. And let's see if I can do, let's go back to car. There was speed in there, right? I wonder if it has, so I'm going to drag the speed back up. There it is. All right. So that's a blue color. If I want to change it, I can do something else. I don't think this is dynamic. I think it just stays the same color blue all the way through. So if, obviously you can't go too fast in a race car, can you? So no reason for it to turn red or something like that. But I can go down here, highlight it, and change it to yellow or purple or whatever I want it to be. Let's make it, what is that, blue? That's kind of a dark blue. Yeah, that's a light blue. This is a darker blue. And then we can, of course, we can move it around. And if I like that, I can go in and say save layout. Now I just saved it, and you can see layout 30 just popped up there. So now I have a new layout, right? So that's the way you do it. And again, I'm not going to go any deeper than this on this software overview here, because you can, as you can see, there's so many things you can do here. Data available for different games. Now, some games are going to have data available that other games will not. It is totally game dependent what you can get and how accurate it is. Now, again, this is something you just have to test out. There's no way for you to know beforehand what works or what doesn't work. But as soon as your game's up and running, you should be able to determine what kind of things you can see on your displays and make changes to existing displays or start from scratch if you want. So anyway, very powerful software. I really like this program, and I like the UGT display. It's a very nice display as far as the brightness and everything. There's a lot of things you can do with it. There's no guarantee every single thing is going to work, but it's a very powerful interface. And I'm going to go ahead and kill this. And it says you want to save. They've been saved. I'm just going to say no for now. So I'm going to say exit without saving because I'm really not sure what I changed and I don't want to mess it up. And when you do that, you can see over here, that it's reading the files again and missing backgrounds. If you want to upload the files for the backgrounds it was missing. So if I made any changes, this is going to fill the device up with whatever changes it needs. So when I closed this down, it said, hey, you're missing something. Would you like to put it on the device? And this is also a good way to show you guys how long it takes this to happen. The same thing when you're loading your layouts or your dashes, what do you want to call these things? It takes a little bit, as you can see. So it knows that I created a layout, even though I said don't, exit without saving. It saw some changes that I made, and it's trying to write those changes over to the wheel. And you can see that transfer file to device. So it's recognized something that I need over on the wheel, or rather on the display. And yeah, so that's what it's doing now. As you can see, not the fastest interface in the world. So if you load a bunch of layouts, plan on just go ahead and setting up your display and just say, okay, I'm going to upload all these layouts to my display and go have lunch. Because if you have like 20 displays, as you can see, or layouts, then yeah, it's going to take a while to get that done. Of course, I'm not going to make you guys sit through all that, so we're just going to move on to the next feature set I wanted to talk about, and that is mapping buttons. So we go up to global options here and click on global mappings, and you can see we have an extended list of different things we can control with our wheel controls. Buttons, switches, encoders, or whatever you want to use. I'm going to stick with page up and page down just for this example. And you can see that it says SimMagic Hub button 1 and button 5 over here for page up and page down. That's what I'm using, a SimMagic GT4 wheel that I'm also reviewing, and I'll be using that to map buttons to. And we'll see it in action a little later. All right, so page up. I'm going to click on this. Very simple thing to do. Select your input, and I'm going to select this upper yellow button here. And you can see it took the input and changed it from what it was to now button 2. The button for page down is button 5, and I'm going to click on that. Select input. I'm going to make it my wiper one, and that's button 7. So now I've mapped the buttons. So hopefully that works now. So I'm going to save it. Wait for it to write the files and do what it's supposed to do. Reading files, writing files. It goes through its sequence. And now I should be able to use these buttons. So I'm going to try page down. There we go. That's working. Page up is working. And of course, I would use this in a race to get a better situational awareness of how the race is developing from my point of view. And I could go over and check out the times that guys are putting in and some other information like my difference as far as stints, my best laps, and where I'm getting worse or better, things like that. And I can also check on temperatures if the game supports that, tire wear, things like that. And of course, we can go back to where I was before very quickly. And you'll see me doing that in the driving segment, going through the screens, just checking on things. So very simple. It works. I haven't had it not work yet. So everything works like it should when you're doing the button mapping. Of course, I could use an encoder or a switch or whatever, like I said. So yeah, that's about it for the features. Again, I didn't want to do a very deep dive here because I could spend an hour, maybe even 2 hours, messing around with different layouts and going over colors and things like that. But yeah, it's something that you can really have a lot of fun using, I think. And if you have the time to put in or just want to grab a layout off the internet, it's very easy to do that too. I think it's a very functional device that you can use again and make it a tool really at the end of the day. So we have the unit mounted now, and it's looking good there, sitting right where it needs to be in the steering wheel. In my sitting position, I'm kind of looking like this, I think. I did have to space this out a bit. You can see I've got some washers in there, 3 washers acting as spacers on both sides. Got them down there too. And the reason I had to do that is because the screw heads with these countersunk washers on them stick out a bit. And you can see that, yeah, if I didn't have these washers in here, this would be hitting. Now, I do have it again in the lowest settings all the way down. If I picked it up, because you can see the slot in the bracket there, I could pick it up higher. But even at the highest part, or the highest level, this still hit just on the edge of this bracket, right? So that didn't alleviate the problem. Plus, I didn't want it any higher than this. I want it kind of where it is now. And again, this is not something that's uncommon when I'm bolting things to rigs, and it depends on the rig and which motor mount you're using, things like that. This motor mount is on the ASR 6 from Advanced Sim Racing, their cockpit, and you can see it's got some cutouts there. But you can see how high that rises up or raises up in the bin there. as far as that curvature goes. So maybe some other bracket, it wouldn't do that. But in any case, not a big deal to throw some washers in there and get it adjusted exactly where I need it to be, right? Now, we got that out of the way, and it's mounted. I have everything mapped the way I want to. These are going to be my page up and page down buttons over here because I don't use them for anything else. And that allows me to obviously page through the information, and that's what these displays are all about, information. This is the dash I'm using, and I have another one here that I use a lot, and I'm going to go ahead and bring that up. And this is the other people in the session. Now, this was a live session. It was a practice session, and you can see how it kind of scrolls over and keeps, this is an update that just keeps scrolling and updating. And you can see the differentials right away, who's doing what. You see it's pretty close in there, and this is the Mazda MX-5 Cup, and this was a practice session. So you can see how close those guys are. They're pretty good. I just popped in to grab the data that you see here so I could show you this and how it's working. And you can see over here in the info, everything's finished because the session is finished, so it all says fin. And if it wasn't finished, then you could see when somebody was in the pit. A lot of good information here, seeing what the track times are, differentials, where you are on the track as far as the times. And yes, it's like I say, information is a powerful thing during a race sometimes. It helps you maybe develop a little bit better strategy on what you need to do to get a better finish. I'm going to page one more time over here. And this is another dash, but it gives me some basic stuff here like my RPMs and my gear, but it also information. You can see that was a practice session. And again, Mazda MX-5 Cup. And also gives me my splits, so I know where I'm good or bad. And yeah, so just some good information to have. And that's what I like about these displays. And I also like these displays because they're very crispy looking. I don't know how well this is going to show up in the video, but this is a very crispy looking dash. It's very clear. You know, you just glance at it and you can get a lot of information right away and just page on it to the next thing that you need, like tire temp or something, or tire wear. Now, depending on the game you're in, as I probably said a couple of times already, is whether or not we're going to get the info. Now, in iRacing, it doesn't give us very good tread wear or temperatures. It is as accurate as I think it should be. So, yeah, that might not even show up as a differential once we're actually coming out of the pits or coming back in, or it might. It depends on the game. Some games, like, you know, have all this information here, fuel, deltas, especially in some of the cars where you have the batteries charging and things like that. Let's go to one of those screens. Yeah, battery charge over here, curves, things like that, may or may not register on this display because, well, it's a software thing, right? And again, the guys that developed this display, right, Ultimate Game Tech, they are constantly updating that stuff. So chances are it could be fixed in the future if it doesn't work for you as far as one of these indicators. But everything looks good for me and what I want to do. And yeah, that's about it. I really like the way this dash looks. I like the visor on the top to keep the ambient light from coming down and glaring on your display here. And of course, being mounted very securely here is really nice too. So what we'll do next is just get some driving footage of me going through the pages. Not a lot to see there, really. I'm just going through pages and up or down or whatever I'm doing to get information that I want, and then obviously returning to the dash once that's all done. So that's what we'll do next. So we are at Sebring and iRacing in the Ferrari 48 GT3 as usual. We're testing out this SimCore UD1-J dashboard. You know, this is a very well built dashboard, and the brackets, the carbon pieces that support it where you mount it to these wheel mounts is, you know, it just comes together very well. It's very stiff once it's mounted and just doesn't move at all, which is nice to have something that's not flexing or, you know, distracting you because it's moving like that. Anyway, so what can we talk about when it comes to a dash? Well, again, this is really an informational tool to me. All these dashes are. And I use it to, when I'm in a race, to get information on the race in general, as far as what's going on around me and where the leaders are, where I am, and fuel. I mean, there's a lot of information that we can get off of a dash, as long as, of course, the game supports that information feed to us. And some games don't, so there's some things you may not be able to get off of this dash, and well, until the game changes that, that's just the way it is. But it's very convenient to be able to scroll through, as you see I'm doing right here, through these screens and be able to see what's going on in the live race. And yeah, it's just depending on what you need as far as lap times, where the leaders' lap times are, things like that. Again, it depends on the individual what they want to get out of something like a display. And of course, I'm sure the VR guys will chime in here and say how this is completely unnecessary because, well, they're under a hood, and they are correct. But if you're not in VR, obviously this is something, again, like a tool that you can use. Now, I never had any issues with as far as assigning the buttons. The trick is when you're assigning buttons, make sure that you have all the other USB appliances unplugged from your computer, besides a mouse and a keyboard, of course, because I did have an instance where I was assigning a button one time and it saw my pedals, and it kept trying to just pick my pedals as something that I could use to do my page up and page down and other adjustments. So it was easier if you just pull all the USB off and just have your wheel or your button plate and your display on there, and it works fine then. So just a little quirk, as it were, when you're actually setting these things up. But yeah, at the end of the day, a dash is something that some people are going to want, some people aren't going to want. And this is a very nice dash. Now, it's also a very expensive dash. It's like $600. So again, that's something you have to think about when you're looking for a dash solution. There's a lot cheaper ways to get information like this, but again, they're not as nice as what you're seeing right here. This is a very nice dash. I mean, everything, if you've been watching the video, it's just super top flight level kind of equipment. So again, it's just up to you to decide if this is something that you would need or not. Anyway, we'll go ahead and get to the final thoughts. Final thoughts on the UD1-J dashboard from the guys at SimCore. From the moment you take this dash out of the box, you know you have a top-flight piece of kit in your hands. The machining and finish are very good. You can tell that SimCore is a detail-oriented company. The UGT dash fits in the front of the machined enclosure perfectly, with every LED hole centered on its LED. You know, sometimes I can find a hole or two that are not perfectly aligned when looking at wheels or dashes that have these displays. But not on this one. I like the way the enclosure has a visor element machined into it. This can help keep stray light from interfering with the dash's readouts. Most enclosures you will see out there today just are flat around that top area. The back panel is made from carbon fiber, which fits nicely in the recessed lip around the edge of the enclosure. Once we had the enclosure open, you could see the theme of quality kit is also present inside. About as neat and tidy as you can get, I think. The USB connector is a quality unit that reminds me of some of the audio headphone connectors I've used in the past. A nice spring tension collar that allows it to snap securely around the enclosure-mounted connector. There are plenty of mounting options available when ordering the dash from SimCore, and I was able to demo several of them here. I did have to use spacers on 2 of the mounting solutions to clear the rear carbon plate bolts. Using the UD1-J was pretty straightforward. There's lots of features available with the Ultimate Game Tech display used in this unit, although some may not work depending on which game you are using. I spent a few weeks using this dash on a midge motor mount and a Kollmorgen motor mount. I found that you can use this dash to your advantage to develop or tweak your racing strategies during the event. This is a very nice display that has clear and crisp fonts. Easy to take a quick glance and get the data that you are looking for. At around $600, this is one of the most expensive dashes I have ever tested, but also one of the nicest I've ever tested. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.